How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Let's Not. Today, as a part of our bonus Wednesday series, we're going to be playing Pokemon Sword and Shield, the Crown Tundra. Alright, so I wanted to release a couple videos about the Crown Tundra. It's a very fun expansion. I've been really enjoying it. But just looking at some of the videos, some of the resources out there, I noticed a couple gaps, so I wanted to talk about those. So the first thing that we're going to be doing today is going to be talking about the new Dynamax Lair, or the Dynamax Adventures, and how to tackle these solo. So I've seen a lot of great guides about these in general, and how to play them with friends, and how pretty much every YouTuber out there is recommending that you get a party together and play as the party because it's way more efficient. And while that's true, you do have to sit through the matchmaking process. You have to, trust the other people you're playing with. So I want to talk about how to play this effectively for those of us who maybe don't have 3 other friends that are always ready to play this. And I want to talk about the strategies to make sure that you can successfully farm this mode solo. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So I'm going to go ahead and start up a new Dynamax adventure. And the Pokemon that I'm farming for a shiny form is Zekrom, so I'm going to select that. So knowing whatever Pokemon you're farming is obviously a huge help, just because you can kind of plan out your route to find Pokemon that are going to be effective at dealing with that particular boss. So I'm going to say don't invite others. And I mean, this is honestly a fantastic start, right? We have a Sandslash here, we have a Dugtrio, we have a hit. Like, all of these would do fine against Zekrom. So the very first piece of advice I'm going to give you is pick the worst Pokemon, right? And the reason I say this is because you can control what you pick, but you can never control what your AI picks, right? So in the end, you could end up with an AI picking something like, a Basculin, right? Which is going to be weak to Zekrom. And even if you play completely right and go the entire path correctly, they may never switch out that Basculin. All right, so I'm going to plan out my path. So obviously I'm looking for ground, fairy, and ice types, right? Because Zekrom is weak to them. And I've got none of those. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try and plan out a path that will give me maybe more items, or just a better chance overall at fighting this. That said, because of the way that my start went, my team's actually not that bad as far as my AI. Though sometimes AI will use good Pokemon very poorly. For example, if a Pokemon has a self-buffing move, like Swampert has Amnesia, or Copperjaw has Iron Defense. Unfortunately, the AI is really bad, and it'll get locked into that move type, so you have to be really careful about that. But for the most part, my team here is pretty good. Dugtrio and Sandslash have mostly attacking moves. Really low defense, though, so I am a little worried that Zekrom can one-shot them. But really, what we want to end up doing here is planning out our path the best we possibly can, and making sure we control what our teammates have the ability to switch into. And this is huge, right? This is why we picked the worst Pokemon, to give us a better chance of our teammates having better Pokemon available to them, right? By picking the worst thing, the better options like Dugtrio and Sandslash Ice, right? The Alola Sandslash were taken by our teammates, which was great. Even more Pico, it's not a terrible pick for Zekrom, right? Because it's going to be able to resist the electric type moves. So because I have this start, I'm going to want to make sure I maintain complete control over what my teammates get, while still catching everything to make sure I have that high shiny chance. So I do want to make sure to continue to catch every Pokemon available to me, so that in the end of the day, I've just got that many more chances for something to be shiny. There is a strategy, where you don't catch something if it's really bad against the final boss. Like, let's say my path had 2 options, flying and water. Right, let's say those were my only choices. Both are really bad against Zekrom. So you may say, well, if I don't catch it, nobody can switch out and do it. And that's true. But at the end of the day, if you don't catch it, there's no chance it's going to end up shiny. So you kind of hurt yourself in the farming there. So Lairon's not great. He's got Sturdy, which is fantastic, but I don't want any of my teammates to pick him up. Their things are all better, so I'm going to pick him up myself. And I'm going to continue doing this to make sure that, again, I can control kind of the narrative. All right, so in this particular set, we're probably going to take this path here, which is the normal path to the psychic path to the end. Though I have to hover over that psychic path a little longer to try and tell what I'm actually going to be fighting. So hovering over the path is a great way of seeing what you're going to fight. Obviously, I can see from hovering over this right path I'm going to fight a Porygon. And this is a great way to determine if there's a good dual type for you. Again, scientists, I have to control the narrative, so I will take it whatever it ends up being. Which Beware is going to be perfect to fight this Porygon anyway. So look for dual types that benefit you, right? Just because it says water, which is a path I would never go down for Zekrom, if I hover over it and it's a Swampert, that's fantastic. Or a Gastrodon or any of these other water ground types, because they're going to be immune to his electric attacks. Porygon, not so great, but that's okay because he's not going to be the final thing I end up with. Again, I still like where my team is at. I think this is a team comp that will win the final fight. So we're going to lead off with a double edge here, nice and simple. I love Substitute. Substitute is fantastic for this mode. Only because against the final boss, having a Substitute up can save you a life, and you've only got a few mistakes. You've got, I think, you get 3 deaths, and the 4th death will knock you out of the mode altogether. So having a teammate with Substitute is awesome because that's basically an extra death. Excuse me. Horrible start. So that's not great, obviously. We got 3 deaths, and Beware obviously just bit the dust. So now going into the final boss, we're going to have 1 less death available to us. That's still okay. I'm still not super concerned because, I think this team has the potential to take him out. And, you know, deaths are going to happen. In fact, you know, no matter what you do, there will be matches where you will just lose. Playing solo, you kind of have to accept that more than playing with other people, because the AI is very bad. But at the same time, that does add an extra challenge to it, which is kind of a fun challenge, because Pokemon is a game that doesn't really have any challenge. It's not a very challenging game. It's a game kind of obviously made to be playable by the younger audiences, and that's a critical hit, and that's horrible. So this may not be a win run after all. I cannot believe that I've lost 2 things to a Porygon, but that's what it is. Let's see if we can still salvage this win. So playing with the AI is a fun way of granting an extra challenge to yourself. Alright, so let's go ahead and take out this Porygon. Tough round. That was a tough round. Alright. So let's go ahead and catch Porygon here, and then we're going to take over Porygon as our main Pokemon. And then hopefully we can salvage the rest of this run with items and whatever the Psychic type is, experience no more deaths, and since our team's super offensive, hopefully we can get a quick kill on Zekrom, take him out in a few shots. But we'll see. We'll see. The legendaries are very tanky because they're also higher level than your Pokemon. So all of your Pokemon will sit at level 65, whereas the final boss will sit at level 70. So, but yeah, just to recap, always take the worst Pokemon, plan out your path, right? That makes the most sense. Like looking around here, between my options, my Pokemon are all full health. Items are super valuable to have at least once, just because specifically the Focus Sash. If you find the Focus Sash, that is by far the best item you can take in saving your life for most Pokemon. So let's talk about items, right? What items are we looking for? So we typically want to avoid any one-time use, right? The reason is because Electric Seed and Psychic Seed, while they're cool, the boss can just wipe up status up effects, right? So he can just decide, well, all of your status buffs are gone. So I'm going to pick the Focus Band here. It's not quite as good as the Focus Sash, but it can still change the course of the game. It can still stop an entire run from failing if I'm lucky, right? So out of that list of items, it was by far the best choice. The Wise Glass would have been the second best choice because I was fairly certain that I'd go up against a Psychic type here. But again, you want to make sure to pick whatever's going to give you the best chance of winning the game. And just avoid single-time use altogether. Things like leftovers and shell bell, while they're still good, they do lose a couple points as compared to getting the focus band or the focus sash. Alright. So I am a little worried about this Kadabra here, but I don't want to waste my Dynamax because it's going to take longer for my character to Dynamax again. So I'm actually going to go with a foul play here. Just because the way it works is if I Dynamax now, I'll be Dynamax throughout this fight, and I'll be last priority against the AIs for Dynamaxing. The AIs can never Dynamax, so I have to wait that full 4-turn cycle before I get to Dynamax again. Assuming we don't kill Kadabra in turn 1, I'm going to be one step ahead on the rung for when I get to Dynamax again, if I choose not to Dynamax now. So that's the mentality. Though, again, we may just kill this Kadabra right now anyway. Okay, probably not. Again, Sandslash unfortunately has a self-buffing move, and the AI loves self-buffing moves, even though they're a waste because the bosses can just wipe up all the status and kind of reset the board. Which, you know, I get, right? If you get yourself into a state where you're at +6 defense and the boss can't even hurt you, how else would the game be able to end? So it's just their way of adding a little bit more difficulty to these fights. And just like that. Okay, so because I waited that turn and I didn't Dynamax, I get to go at least one rung up higher. Alright, so let's catch the Kadabra, and we've got just one life that we can lose in this final fight with Zekrom. So this is going to be a tough one, guys. It's going to be a tough one. We'll see if we can pull it off. All right. So I will switch again. Luckily, this Kadabra does know Dazzling Gleam, so it's not completely dead weight. It also knows Endure, which is not a terrible move, if we're being honest, for this particular content. Just because if that Zekrom does decide to hit me, it will absolutely kill me in a single shot as a Kadabra. There's nothing I can do to avoid that other than Endure. But this is going to be tricky. This is going to be tricky. While we do have a lot of firepower here, we need to count on things like Sandslash not doing Swords Dance too much, or we need to count on our team actually hitting him with the right moves. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to go straight into the Dazzling Gleam and see what happens here. I do have the Focus Band, so that could end up saving me here, but it could end up being useless, right? So good damage. Kadabra does hit pretty hard. Just like that. Unfortunately, the Focus Band was not enough. Not over yet, though. Not over yet. Never give up. Hey, that's awesome. So we got the freeze off on the Ice Fang. Hopefully, between that and everything else we've got, we may still be able to pull off a win here. It's not looking great, though. We only have one life left, and we've got a lot of things that Zekrom can kill in one shot. So if we don't kill it fast, we're still in a really rough spot here. Luckily, though, Dugtrio does have his substitute up. And the Zekrom AI and just any AI of the enemies, they'll still try to target things that are immune to them, right? So it's still possible that Zekrom would, like, for example, launch an electric type move at Dugtrio, wasting his turn. So it's still not over yet. Still not over yet, guys. Again, we do have a very high damage team, so that is our one saving grace here. That's not great, though. That's not great. So I'm going to come back, and I still won't have the ability to Dynamax just yet, which is unfortunate. Oh, actually, no, I will. I will. Right? No, I won't. I won't. I still have to wait one more turn. Okay, I lied. I apparently have it immediately. That said, I'm not actually sure the Dynamax will save me if it does decide to target me. You know, even Dynamax, I'm only at a few hundred HP, and Zekrom hits really, really hard. This has also been a pretty interesting run in that most everything that I battled against leading up to Actually, everything I battled against leading up to Zekrom was unevolved. I battled against a Lairon, a Kadabra, and a Porygon. So pretty crazy round overall in that I got just a really weak set of leading up bosses, which again end up making your team, so that's why that matters. This is going to be really close, guys. It probably will thaw out here and kill us all. So let's see what it does. Okay, so Zekrom is... Okay, he didn't thaw out. That's great. But he is aggroed, which means he is going to start using 2 attacks. Yeah, one thing that I have noticed that's pretty interesting to me is that it seems like you're starting... Like, the things you get leading up to the final boss fight will all either be really weak or really strong. There's, like, no middle ground where you kind of get a mix of both. Again, it could just be anecdotal. It's just something I've noticed playing through the game. Oh, no. Does anybody else get to attack before him? Perfect. Just like that, guys. Even with a horrible, horrible start against that Porygon, we still managed to get the win. So, I hope these tips helped you guys. I just want to make this a short little video to talk about some of the things that helped me when playing this game solo. And again, really the idea is pretty simple, right? Make sure you are always picking the worst Pokemon. Never let your team end up with a water type going into Zekrom, right? Control that as best you can. If no matter what happens, though, it's still possible your teammates will pick something like a water Pokemon. And if that's the case, prioritize Scientist. Make sure you give every possible chance to get that water type out of your team to fix your AI roster. So make sure you're saying no to every single thing you can until that water type Pokemon is replaced and you have a roster that you're confident can beat the final boss. But yeah, guys, that's it. Plan out your path, pick the worst Pokemon, and control your team's roster. That will be by far the best way for you to be successful in solo Dynamax adventures. And really quick, we'll make sure we'll check for the shinies. All right, no shinies today, guys, but hope that helped. Thanks, everybody.